final question for Dave. This is from Di Wilson. What is your opinion as coaches regards the use of poles on long distance trail races?
First thing I want to say this, they are not for everyone. Just because somebody else uses poles doesn't mean to say that you have to as well. But I do think if you're doing very long races, if you're doing 100 Ks or above, and particularly if they're going to be in mountains, it's something to investigate. And there are enough people who have got them that are covered in cobwebs at the back of the cupboard that you could probably borrow some initially and have a go and see how you get on. But they have pros and cons. So some of the things they will help with your propulsion. I mean, basically, you could have 4 points touching the ground that are actually going to push you forward instead of just 2. So there is a kind of biomechanical advantage to using them. They're going to provide you with, or potentially in certain terrain, they will provide you with a bit greater stability. Again, you're talking about points of contact. They will allow you to spread the load, go back to that racing with a heavy pack. They're going to allow you to spread that out a little bit. And they will give you a slightly better posture, particularly when you're carrying a pack and you're starting to fatigue. Rather than kind of hunching, they will naturally allow you to stay a little bit taller in your gait. However, there are trade-offs to that. It's not all kind of champagne and strawberries. We've got to think, right, you are going to use more muscles while you're using poles. Okay, you're going to use more upper body strength. Therefore, there will be an increased cardiovascular demand. So that you have to realize that you are, for the same amount of sort of forward propulsion, you're going to use your cardiovascular system a little bit more. You have to accept that. The thing about doing a long ultra is we've got a little bit of spare capacity in our cardiovascular system because we're not racing near our kind of lactate threshold. You are going to be carrying more weight. Even a lightweight set of poles is still something you've got to carry around. Okay, I know they're going to be in your hands for some of it, but they're not going to be in your hands all the time. And then I know a lot of people are put off by the logistics of poles. Like, you've got to get really, really slick at stowing them and getting them back out again. If you don't, you're not going to use them, so you're carrying them for nothing. You've got to work out, right, I know a lot of us, we eat and drink while we're on a long climb. So how are you going to do that while you've got your hands are holding onto poles at the same time and you're trying to hike up there? What about your drinking? Do you take your bottles out, and how are you going to drink there? Or have you got straws? There's a lot of things, a lot of kind of faffing to think about if you're going to use these poles. So the number one priority is that you've got to become very, very efficient and au fait with them. You can't decide, that Eddie said it for something else earlier, but it's the same. You can't decide 3 weeks before UTMB, well, actually, everybody else, you've arrived in Chamonix and you're going, well, everybody else is using poles.
I'm going to the lecky stand.
I better get myself some of that. So you go and get yourself some poles, and then basically you're going to carry them around for however many hours and not use them. Or if you are going to use them, you're going to be tripping over them and have all those kind of problems going on. So if a race has a high amount of uphill in it, then there is a greater advantage to using poles, because you're going to be hiking, you're going to be uphill, so you're going to get more advantage from those pros than you are from the disadvantages from the cons. So the first thing you've got to do is decide what race are you doing, and are the poles going to be worthwhile? And when you've made that decision, then think about trying to get hold of some. Even if you got hold of some of these really, really cheap hiking poles, I mean, certainly in Keswick, you can buy them for like 15 quid for a pair. Okay, they're very heavy, but at least you could have a go and you can make a decision as to whether you want to try and go further forward with it. You need to do lots and lots and lots of training with it, or with them. And that includes, how are you going to stow them? How are you going to get them out? Get really, really slick at that. I got to the point when I got a rent entry for UTMB in 2014. So I did all that. I said, right, back in January of that year, I might need poles for this. So I got myself some poles, and I just became very au fait with them. I got very good with them. I had little bits of elastic all over my vests, and I was deciding where I wanted to stow them and what was the best method and blah, blah, blah. And now I personally wouldn't do a hilly ultra without them. I use them in the Lakeland 100. I'll use them obviously out in kind of Chamonix and that kind of racing. I will use them, but I am very used to them. You've got to get the right size for what you're doing, and that's another whole. There's loads of sort of videos and information on all the manufacturers as to how to do that. I only use my poles for uphill. I don't use them on downhill. My quads are pretty rock proof, so I don't use them downhill at all. That's from my fell running background, I guess. But I get a better posture when I'm going uphill, and I just feel more comfortable doing it. So I've got a set length of pole. I don't need to be able to change them while I'm racing. I've got one that fits me really nicely for that, but that's what I want. So other people perhaps going to have different a different length of pole if they're going to use it more for the downhill. Your pole strike, when it's hitting the ground, you've got to make sure that it's landing so you're ready to push backwards, not putting it way out in front where you're going to be pointing the wrong way. It's back to the same when we're running downhill, where we're striking, what's our kind of negative force as we're trying to go forward. And you need to realize that particularly when you're going uphill, your biomechanics are going to change a bit. Your stride is going to lengthen using the poles. So bear that, all I would say is bear that in mind. Obviously you need to find out, how best to use them when there's other runners around you. I don't mean trying to. You don't if you're
from France. You just poke them in the eye.
I was thinking more about the kind of trail etiquette. If you're running behind somebody and you're carrying your poles in your hand, then make sure that the spike is pointing backwards and that kind of thing. There's a lot to think about, but the bottom line is, if you are going to try it, you've got to try it early. You've got to stick with it for a while, and you've got to get slick so that it doesn't feel like a hindrance. It's got to be an advantage for you, not a hindrance.
I know from now, 5 years of living here we call them bâtons in France, that now I go for them and I'll go, if I've forgotten them, I'll go, I'm actually so used to now. I move into that position to go uphill. And as you said, it's a different position as you move forward. And I just want to reiterate what Dave said. You've got to practice until that pole in your hand feels like an extension of your arm, and it's just going up and forward. And I use mine as well now in the downhill, as really helped, especially on technical stuff. And if it's in snow or really super slidey, it's really helped with my confidence. But it has taken me. It's not something you can just pick up and go, I can use. It might be a bit different in like the Spine and Cape Wrath in a multi-day, where the pole is much more about supporting your absolutely ruined legs and keeping your balance. If you've got a big pack on, that's a very different. That's very different to using your pole to actually get your body uphill. And the reason that the French or the Europeans are so good at it is because they ski. They cross-country ski, they ski tour, so that's going uphill. They're using that upper body all winter, so it's very natural for them. So if from us coming from the UK, we have to really incorporate it into our training. But I would encourage you, if you're coming over to do any mountain races, you've got a race with a lot of climbing, is to give it a go. My Race Kit is a really good web page where you can go and you can read all about different poles and which ones might work for you in different sizes. But yeah, I would say don't. And when people call them cheat sticks, that really annoys me, because it's only because they can't use them and they're jealous. If you can use them, I guarantee that they will improve your performance. They're not going to ever cause you a disadvantage unless you store them on your waist or in your pack and never use them. Here ends mine.